The Energy Bus. Chapter 1, Flat Tire. It was Monday, and Mondays were never good for George. He stood in his driveway, looking at his car and shaking his head. He wasn't surprised, really. Misfortune had been following him for the past few years, like a dark rain cloud hovering over his head. And today was no difference. His tire was completely flat, and George's face was about to burst. "Not today!" he shouted as he opened the trunk, only to find a flat spare tire. He heard his wife's words in his head. "You should get that fixed, George. One day you are going to have a flat and wish you had a spare tire." Why does she always have to be right? He wondered. George thought up his neighbor Dave and ran down the block to see if he had already left for work. Dave worked downtown too, and George was hoping to catch a quick ride with him. George had an important meeting with his team at work, and today he couldn't afford to be late. Not today, especially not today. George punched the air with his clenched fist when he saw that Dave's car was gone. Of course, he thought, why would he still be there? That would be too easy. As sweat poured from his brow, he ran back home, then stood in his driveway and looked at his cell phone, trying to think of someone at work he could call. Think. Then it dawned on him he couldn't think of one person at work he could call who would come pick him up. His only option left was his wife, and she was the last person he wanted to ask. George walked in the house and heard the usual noise and chaos coming from the kitchen. He could hear the puppy jumping around and his wife trying to get kids to sit still and eat their breakfast before heading up to school. He peered through the kitchen archway. As soon as the children saw him, the cheers erupted. "Hi, Dad!" they yelled. His daughter came up to him as wrapped her arms around his hip. "I love you, Daddy," she said as George barely acknowledged her. His son shouted, "Dad, can we play basketball right now?" George was like a reluctant celebrity in his own home. They wanted a piece of him, but he just wanted to hide in silence. "No," George shouted back. "It's not a weekend. I have to get to work. Now both of you just please be quiet so I can ask your mother something. Honey, I have a flat tire and I have this really important meeting. I have to get to today and I need your car," he said frantically.